visuals now coming in from multiple cities across India where these protests against Nupur Sharma have broken out. They are demanding, and it is in fact one demand from the entire community from various cities. These are visuals from Lucknow where the protesters are demanding arrest of Nupur Sharma. There's a massive gathering there in Lucknow. These are pictures that we're getting you from Lucknow of the protest which is taking place now. Of course, the administration, the local police across the state of Uttar Pradesh is on alert. They anticipated that several such protests could take place. They've also made arrangements to control the crowd. But it's evident that this is spilling onto other states as well, not just Uttar Pradesh. I believe, are getting some reactions as well. We'll play those reactions as and when we get them. Our reporters are on ground, biggest team of reporters getting you each and every update on these protests that have now broken out in multiple cities. Let's go across to Mayank now. Mayank, we were taking an update from Amir about the protests in Moradabad, and he also had a similar information to share that the police there, the administration there was anticipating that individuals are going to gather and protest, but nobody has organized these protests. Is that really possible?
Well, it seems contradictory, on the face of it that, that this level of protest can be, without a leader. When we were stopped from doing our coverage from the road adjacent to Jama Masjid, one of the people from the community said that there is no leader, this protest has not been led by anyone, so that there is no official voice, and some of the people who are coming from outside the Jama Masjid area, they can come and make some remarks that will lead to destruction of reputation of the people in the Jama Masjid area. But the question that arises from that point is that how can a protest and a gathering of some hundreds of people be taking place with hundreds of people taking one sort of poster, and sloganeering simultaneously from the first gate of the Jama Masjid without any leader. So it seems contradictory on the face of it.
It seems that, contradictory, but we have a reaction coming in from the Shahi Imam of Jama Masjid in the national capital. Mayank, stay on. And the Shahi Imam, in fact, has distanced himself and the Masjid committee from these protests. He says no call for protest was given from Jama Masjid, from the Masjid committee. Also goes on to say, in fact, yesterday when people were planning to protest, it was told to them clearly that there is no call for protest from the Masjid committee. And in fact, the Shahi Imam also, they're saying that we don't know who are the ones who are protesting. They are at this point of time saying that they believe that these individuals belong to AIMIM or are overseas people. He says we made it clear that if they want to protest, they can, but we will not support them. Let's go back to Mayank, who continues to be with us. And we have Amir as well getting us updates about the protests that are taking place in Uttar Pradesh. Mayank, to you first, because this is the latest that we are picking up. The Shahi Imam of Jama Masjid has distanced himself and the Masjid committee from these protests. He says these men, maybe belong to AIMIM. These could be overseas people, and that we get no call for such protests.
Well, Shahi Imam can make any statement, but as far as we could gather from the ground, we were present, some 15 to 30 minutes before the Friday prayer, and all of the people who entered through the first gate of the Jama Masjid, almost none of them had any poster in their hands. But when they were coming out after the Friday prayer, they had the poster against Naveen Jindal and Nupur Sharma in their hands. So that clearly indicates that whether it was a hidden plan that they would have had those posters in their pocket, and after the Friday prayer they started sloganeering with those posters, or else they were supplied by those posters from another gate. That is the thing that we could establish, connecting the dots, because we were there 30 minutes before the Friday prayer started, and almost none of the people had any sort of posters in their hand while entering the mosque, the Jama Masjid. But while after coming back right at the start of the exit gate, from the first staircase to the exit gate of the Jama Masjid, at the first gate, there was some 100 to 200 people who had posters in their hand. So how come this can happen that they didn't have that poster poster in their hand while going inside, but they were unfurling those while coming back. So either it is a very coordinated campaign of protesting against what they are calling blasphemous statement, or it was just some of the people were hiding those posters in their pockets while entering the mosque.
Well, that of course is for the police to figure out. Are these planned protests and who is really behind them? Let's go across to Amir as well. Amir, now protests have begun outside the Tili Masjid in Lucknow.
Well, yes, Swati, you see, like we were discussing earlier, this is an issue which the respective district administration are seized of. They understand that since today are Juma prayers, Muslims from people from minority community will definitely congregate at mosques in large numbers, and since this is one topic that has remained in discussion over the last 1 week, more so especially after the violence that erupted in Kanpur last Friday. This is perhaps an occasion when people from minority community clearly knew that they can raise their voice, that they can vent out their anger, but thankfully so far the police has been very vigilant. They have been overseeing all such protests wherever they have taken place. Especially we've seen visuals coming in from Lucknow as well as Muradabad and Saharanpur. There definitely no violent incident has been reported till now, and people are raising slogans. They are demanding from the government that very stringent action, punishment needs to be given over to all such people who have performed blasphemy or spoken ill of the Prophet. And also, after the central government perhaps went ahead and in fact the Delhi police registered an FIR against multiple people from both sides who had made controversial statements hurting religious sentiments from both sides. That clearly paved way perhaps for the Friday's protest, because now people feel that since this is something that has been raised from various forums, they have the independence to raise this on a day when people from their community congregate in large numbers, and therefore peaceful protests, so to say, are being allowed by the district administration, because obviously with the kind of large numbers that people have congregated in, they do not want to unruffle the situation or do something which might trigger some of an aggression, and therefore these peaceful arrests are perhaps are being allowed to diffuse the situation so as to contain it later when people disperse there. But clearly no formal call for any kind of protest has been made by any outfit, any mosque or mosque management committee, or for that matter any of the parties in the opposition. These are perhaps impromptu protests that are taking place around Juma prayers, but the police is being very vigilant. You would see these are visuals from Kanpur, from the parade area itself, where large number of police personnel, RAF as well as 12 companies of PSCs have been brought in, and the police is being led by their senior most officials. They've been taking rounds of all such sensitive places, especially areas in old Kanpur, trying to ensure that all such people from minority community who might be thinking of raising their voice of protest against what has been posted on social media at multiple places by multiple individuals. There is action, there is swift action that is being taken against all such individuals. They do not need to take law into their own hands, and also they need to be conscious about the fact that since the police is working as per law, action can also be taken against them. Remember in Kanpur, after
to end on its own, not interfering there much, allowing the protesters to raise those slogans and to leave on their own. So very carefully handling the situation out there. I want to go back to Mayank very quickly. Mayank, so far there is no input on mobilization of the crowd, and based on the input that you and our other reporters are getting us and what you're picking up from the local administration, it seems that the intention is to register a protest, but then it gets tricky when the crowd gets out of control.
Well, absolutely. As I have been mentioning that, police were in some sort of anticipation that there will be a protest. But even the deployment was very heavy to start with just outside the gate at Jama Masjid. However, the police even did not expect that, it would be a coordinated sort of protest. But police were, very delicate in handling that protest. There was completely lack of, they didn't use force at all, and they were just trying to persuade, the members who were protesting with the poster. They were just trying to persuade that let's end it here, let's end it right away, we have taken some action. They were just, even the senior level officials of Delhi police were trying to persuade people to leave those streets, just adjacent to the Jama Masjid. So police handled the situation very delicately. They were not using any sort of force. They were not using even water cannons to disperse the, the huge gathering outside the Jama Masjid. So police handled this, what could have been a tricky situation very nicely
can
on
stay on with us. We have Firoz Ahmed, former Chancellor Maulana Azad National Urdu University, joining us on the broadcast. I am sure you're aware of the protests, multiple protests that have broken out across cities in the country. Your views on this, sir? Sometimes what happens is when there's a huge gathering, huge crowd, it gets tricky when the crowd gets out of control. So far, there are no reports of violence except for stone pelting in Jammu. Firoz Ahmed, can you hear me, sir?
Can you listen to me? Am I audible to you?
Yes, now you are, sir. Please go ahead.
No, what I am saying is, as a law-abiding and practicing Indian Muslim, I am let down whenever I see such a thing like protests, or maybe you say some stone pelting was also there in Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, the head priest also bathed for the blood of Nupur Sharma's head. Now, all these things are totally un-Islamic. These are constitutional. Had the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, living, and he would have been seeing all these things, he would have pardoned Nupur Sharma, because she tendered a public apology, and Naveen Jindal also. So there is no question of, now if they want to get her arrested, if they want to get her hanged, in that case they should go to a court of law. And if the court thinks that she should be arrested and she should be hanged to death by the noose, well, let us leave it to court. But this will leave. Hindus and Muslims have been living for eons, for centuries, like sugar and milk. Now, if this is the tone and tenure of the community, then there will be a lot of problems. We have been living together. If the businessman is Hindu, worker is owner, worker is Hindu.
So you're saying this manner in which the protest is taking place is un-Islamic, and one shouldn't do this, rather forgive Nupur Sharma. Is your view. Thank you very much for joining us. These are